Regina, Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, estes nostra salve.
The Lord be with you. Reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. At that time, Jesus walked by the Sea of Galilee, went up the mountain and sat down there. Great crowds came to him, having with them the lame, the blind, the deformed, the mute, and many others. They placed them at his feet, and he cured them. The crowds were amazed when they saw the mute speaking, the deformed made whole, and the lame walking, and the blind able to see, and they glorified the God of Israel. Jesus summoned his disciples and said, "My heart is moved with pity for the crowd, for they have been with me now for 3 days, and had nothing to eat. I do not want to send them away hungry, for fear they may collapse on the way." The disciples said to him, "Where could we ever get enough bread in this deserted place to satisfy such a crowd?" Jesus said to them, "How many loaves do you have?" 7, they replied, "and a few fish." He ordered the crowd to sit down on the ground. Then he took the 7 loaves and the fish, gave thanks, broke the loaves, and gave them to the disciples, who in turn gave them to the crowds. They all ate and were satisfied. They picked up the fragments of leftovers, 7 baskets full. The Gospel of the Lord. Yesterday I was driving with Father Elson, and they were talking about the next wave of stimulus checks on the radio. So I asked Father Elson, I said, "What did you do with your stimulus check?" He said, "It's none of your business." He didn't say it quite like that, but that's about what it was. But they're having this conversation again. I don't know anyone who refused their stimulus check the last time around. I do know some people who gave it away to charity, but I don't know anyone who refused it. Jesus, we're told here in the gospel, has a heart for people, a compassion. In some ways, the description of this crowd with their deformities and illnesses, they represent us because we all come with stuff. And the gospel reveals that Jesus' heart is here for us, and he wants to provide. As the prophet Isaiah says, "On this mountain, the Lord of hosts will provide for his people." Can you imagine what would have happened if the people who they laid in front of him for healing, when he got to them, they said, "No thanks." And then the bread he started to give away, everybody said, "No thanks." And yet, it's very easy to push aside the graces that God is offering us. They're not necessarily always what we want, but our needs are being provided for. The need that we have truly at the heart of everything is Jesus. And he comes in the package of a little baby who is very defenseless. A compassionate God presenting himself to us in great vulnerability, hoping that we would receive him like a mother and father graciously receive a little baby into their family. Jesus is hoping we would receive his offer for healing and for total satisfaction of all we truly need, not what we think we need. Another thing that Jesus needs is he needs family. Family is an essential part of Christianity, but it's also part of God's very nature. He exists as a family in the Trinity. Jesus doesn't like to work alone. He likes to have a family involvement in everything he does. And so, I don't know if you noticed about this gospel passage, but when it comes time to curing the sick and distributing the food, he doesn't do it by himself. People bring the sick to him. The family gets involved in the distribution of the graces. And he asks the disciples to give him the food, and he blesses it, but they dole out the food. It's their mission. It's our mission to assist Jesus. It's interesting that this reading comes right after the reading called the Great Judgment, where Jesus says, where were you when I was hungry? Where were you when I was sick? Here he is showing his disciples how to fulfill what the Great Judgment is all about, to work with him in the vineyard and help people to come to Christ. You may be asking yourself, well, what can I do about that? First of all, we receive Christ ourselves, most beautifully here in the Eucharist. We receive his word in the scriptures, and we let these nourish us. We pray and we have communion with God. We let these things nourish us, and then we become participants in bringing Christ to the world simply by showing up as a good Catholic. Witnessing what it is all about to be a recipient of many graces that are beautiful, and sharing them with our acts of kindness and charity. Can you imagine, for example, what Holy Family School would look like if everybody treated each other as if I am Jesus and I'm going to take care of you today? Can you imagine what that would look like in the school? And so Jesus provides for us, and he calls us to share in his provision for the world.
Regina Celi, letare, alleluia, qui aquam meruisti portare, alleluia, resurrexit sicut dixit, alleluia, ora pro nobis Deum, alleluia.